everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I am getting this big cottage border seeded for the spring season. It is, February 9th, I think? And it's a little later than I usually do, but I think I'm still in the appropriate window. This is gonna get seeded with cool season annuals, especially poppies, larkspur, and clumps of wheat to look like an ornamental grass and give a really cool textural component. Now I'm doing this with very few tools, so I thought it would be fun to show you what I'm gonna be using. I've got a hard rake for bed prep. I've got my mattock in case I need to weed anything out. I've actually already gone through and weeded this bed, and that is what is here in this handy wine chiller. So this bed had one wine chiller's worth of weeds growing in it, mostly lamium and vetch. Common vetch is really my biggest problem in the winter. But my first step for bed prep is to go ahead and blow out any of the remaining leaves that are in here. I'm gonna blow them out to the lawn, that way they can just get chopped up by the lawnmower and then put back into beds where I'm not growing poppies. Poppies need light to germinate, so it's really important that you prep your bed so that there's nothing in it that will impede their germination, and leaves are definitely one of those things. So since I have it weeded already, I'm just gonna go through right now with my handy still battery operated blower, which I can operate without anybody's help. And I'm gonna go ahead and get the leaves out so I can start seeding. And of course, I'm well aware of the leave the leaves movement, and I totally agree. And I have certain beds where I don't seed poppies, where all those ground leaves go. But this bed needs to be clear and open so that the seeds will have half a chance to germinate. So after clearing out, I'm seeing some good, some bad. I have a little more weeding to do, but wanted to show you what is green that's in here. So this is self-sown larkspur. That's a good plant. We want that. This is self-sown bachelor button. We want some of that, but not too much. And there's a fair amount coming up, so I need to keep an eye on that. This, of course, is vetch. And this is really my number one worst weed. I didn't get the root out. It'll grow right back if you don't get the root. That is a very problematic plant. And I see quite a bit of it still, even though I thought I had done a good job. So go ahead and see those roots have little nodules. They actually are a nitrogen fixing legume, but not the good kind. The kind that set a billion seeds and are difficult to eradicate. What's interesting is that, I've been growing poppies in this bed for more than a decade, and I don't see a single self-sown poppy in here. So it's definitely important that I go ahead and get poppy seeds sown so that this bed will look awesome and impressive for the spring Fuquay Garden Tour, which is May 17th and 18th. Well, the bed is bone dry, so all I'm gonna do with my hard rake is just kind of lightly agitate the soil. Basically just make it so that when I'm scattering the seeds, it'll be good for the seed to have contact with the soil surface. And the first thing that I really want to establish is from this point back, I want it to be wildflowers. So bachelor buttons, poppies, and larkspur. In the front section, I want there to be nicely defined clumps of wheat that will really read as intentional. I don't want the whole thing to look like a mismatched prairie. I want it to look designed. And that's something that you can achieve pretty easily from doing clumps of grain. So as an example, I'm gonna do a grain clump here. Not sure what that was, but I'm gonna do a nice grain clump here. I'm gonna make the clumps about 2 foot by 2 foot. So just with my hard rake, exposing, and I'm gonna do that across here so that it looks very much like I planted these on purpose. Purposeful is really what my aim is for this bed. You know, we're achieving that by having the nice row of daffodils out front, and I want the rest of the planting to sort of mimic that. Of course, I love the unpredictability of a cottage garden, but I want there to be some element that looks purposeful. All right, I've got 8 areas to seed the wheat, and basically just taking the seed packs that I had sold this year, and each one of these is going to be enough to fill 1 hole. Just like that. Scatter it in and then move on to the next. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of these. All right, now the process is simple. Just cover them back up. Just like that. The wheat will just germinate right through. And again, it'll look like an ornamental grass because it's growing in clump form. And that, again, reads as intentional. Doesn't look like an accident when the wheat is growing in a solid clump. And that is exactly what I want visitors to be like, what is that plant and why don't I have it? And then when I tell them it's wheat, they don't even know how to react. Well, now it's time to sow the seed. And of course that process is super easy. The bed is prepped. I'm just gonna toss seed in and that's it. No walking, no raking, no mulching. I am gonna water. I was actually just debating on whether I should water now or after. And I think I'm gonna wait until after, just because time is of the essence and I need to go ahead and get this done. Now people always ask where I get my seed, and most of the time I'm collecting my own and growing it again. But this year I ran out of poppy seed, so I had to buy some. So I bought from Territorial Seed, and this is a bread seed poppy called After Midnight that has burgundy black flowers, so that should be cool. I also got a bunch from Outside Pride, and I bought Iceland poppy, though those have not done very well for me in the past. I'm gonna give it a try anyway. I got the corn poppy called Pandora. This is a really pretty kind of purplish with a white hue. I have a beautiful California poppy called Cream Swirl. This is kind of a double soft yellow that I've never grown before. I'm gonna concentrate that more towards the front. And then, what else do I have? I've got Danish Flag bread seed poppy, so that's red and white. And then I've also got Pephaverise, the corn poppy. This is one called Bridal Silk, and it's pure white. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these poppies sown in this border because I have nothing to lose and I want the seeds sown. I don't need to keep hanging on to these seeds. It's time to get them planted. So again, that process is just take a handful and toss it gently in. What you're aiming for is not get all the seeds in one spot, but rather good ground plane coverage, because this way you won't need to thin. I don't recommend thinning your cottage gardens because that allows for weed seeds to get embedded and start overgrowing. And also, when we get rainstorms in the spring, the weight of the rain, if you have too much space between your plants, the plants will actually lodge and fall down, and you don't want that. So this is a no thinning method, okay? It's the #1 question I get, and I feel like a broken record saying it, but I do not thin my poppies, and I have no intention to start. Use the bowling method so that your seeds scatter appropriately. You won't need to thin either, and it makes your life significantly easier. So again, just to show you the bowling method, I'm pouring seeds into my hand, and then take it, toss it. That's all it takes. All right, the final steps are write down the date that you sowed it and what you sowed, because I promise you won't remember. I use a garden marker, which you can buy on Amazon, And I just write on a used bottle, have a piece of rebar, I can put the bottle on, and it's a great reference. And then it's time to water. And even though we have a rainy week in the forecast, I'm not counting on it being enough for the plants. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull the hose out, and get everything watered really well by hand. I can't stress this enough. We are drier than I have ever experienced in my 23 years in North Carolina. Please pull your hoses out and keep your cottage gardens watered well. When these seedlings are germinating, it's really important that you don't let the top surface of the soil dry out, because then your seeds won't establish well. So do as I say, not as I've done. I've done a terrible job keeping things wet, but I'm determined that I'm going to do better. And I certainly do hope that you will subscribe so that you can stay in the loop for how this installation and all of my gardens are going to grow out for the spring season. I put my weekly garden tour updates up basically every week, and that's the easiest place to find updates. I'm not a video expert, so I don't have external storage for these to be able to put crafty TikTok thing before and afters together. So please just subscribe and tune in to the weekly garden tours so that you can watch the progress week by week, and hopefully you'll be able to learn from it as well. Well, as always, everyone, thanks so much for watching, and happy gardening.